The summer Kentucky nights were always the best to work in. I drew in the temperate air with closed eyes as I waited for Travis to come by. Travis is my partner in crime, literally. For 5 years now, Travis and I have built a business where we bury dead bodies. We learned early on not to ask too many questions. We get a job, often by means of the dark web, and as long as the asker doesn't seem like a total nutcase, we do the work. Whether that be for a hitman company, a big politician, or just Joe that accidentally hit a kid driving with a bit too much blood alcohol content, we just bury the bodies. The job tonight was simple enough. 2 bodies, 160 pounds and 200 pounds. Our rates may vary slightly depending on the weight of the body, so we require that information. That 200 might be a bit annoying, but 5 years of lifting, tossing, and moving bodies, well, it does a body good. I spotted his truck miles and miles away on the Kentucky flatlands, a black blip coming down the road flanked by boundless acres of green grass. The blip in the distance found a slight blue hue and shaped into a Chevy Silverado as he approached. When he was a few miles away, I picked up my duffel, the handle of the shovel sticking out of the top and the bottles of booze shaking and clinking around. I checked my watch as he pulled in, 12 a.m. sharp. Travis was a punctual guy, prided himself on it. After having been friends for many years, I'd like to catch him if he slipped up, even by minutes, and berate him on it, tease and bully, as friends do. His truck came to a halt with a slight squeak. It wasn't the newest truck in the world, but Travis did his best to keep it quiet. Wouldn't help us if any curious campers heard a strange noise in the woods at night. "How you doing, Buttercup?" Travis said through the rolled-down window. "I'll butter your cups if you call me that again," I responded, throwing the duffel in the bed before walking over to the passenger side and pulling it open. Travis watched me get in, smiling his goofy smile. "Brother, you stare at me like that too long, I might run for the hills." He laughed. "I'm doing good too, man. Thanks for asking," he said as he changed gears and began driving. "Where are we headed today?" "Green River. Licking is a bit hotter than I would like. Better funded police, more crowded. Can you press play on my phone for me, by the way?" I obliged. Where is My Mind by Pixie beginning to play through the speakers. "Good idea. Have you done Green before? Can't remember." "One time, I think. That one job 3 years ago. Remember that deer shook some bushes and scared the pants off us?" "Completely slipped my mind. That was terrifying, huh?" "You bet. You were the one in the hole. You said you were about to bury yourself alive just to hide." He laughed. I didn't much remember some of our older jobs. Luckily, other than being punctual, Travis loved his stories and always loved to remember. We continued driving across the plains before finally arriving to Green River. After a couple more minutes of driving, we found a clearing behind the tree line. The moon was waxing, still a couple inches off of full. The clearing was flat, with trees dense enough to cut sight off through a few feet, but open enough to get the truck through. Travis parked the truck on the edge. I got out and grabbed the duffel, eyeballing the rough size of the bodies that were inside 2 large burlap sacks. "Are you digging first?" Travis asked. "Yeah, I'll get us started. Brought some Woodford in the bag today." "A good night it shall be, regular or double oak." I shot him a humorous glare. "Who in God's good name do you think I am? You're about to bury 2 dead bodies and you don't know either of them. Of all the people to speak God's good name, do you really think you're it?" He laughed as he hopped on the bed of the truck, and I found a soft patch of dirt in the clearing. Our system was that one of us would keep the bed of the truck warm and down some of Satan's sauce, while the other dug, and we'd switch every few minutes. I started digging, the warm air feeling like a thin blanket in the dark night. I'd grown quite fond of the rhythmic sound of the shovel as it pierced the earth, a tedious task, but satisfying nonetheless. "How much for this one?" I asked after I'd lifted a few mounds. $3.50 for the smaller one and $5 for the larger one, $8.50 total. Not bad, not special." "Fair enough. Come switch with me," I said as I stepped out of the shallow hole. "We got anything lined up for tomorrow?" "Not right now," he responded, walking towards me, bottle in hand. "A shovel for a bottle," we said in unison as we traded tools. I'd finished the outline for the smaller body before switching with Travis. After so many years, we worked fast. 2 bodies would only take an hour and a half at most. So we finished the 2 holes, threw the bodies in, covered them up, and went on our way. The next afternoon, I got a text from Travis. Hey man, we got a job for tonight. Make sure you bring the good stuff today. This needs celebration. The job is 5 big ones. 5 grand, I thought in disbelief. I responded back. How many bodies we putting down? Just one, man. My stomach started feeling a bit strange. One body? For $5,000? Who was this? I know I'm not supposed to question these things, but this wasn't a normal request. Are you sure the job's safe? Seems a bit off, you know? I've vetted it like normal. We should be good, man. Come on, we can't let this pass us by. I'll bring the Blantons then. 12 o'clock again? Aha, yes, man. Will do. See you soon. I went about the rest of my day, still a bit skeptical at the job, but I trusted Travis. He may be a fun, laid-back guy, but he was fastidious in his work. Again, we didn't know who he worked for. Maybe this was just some high-profile person who wanted a body gone. I didn't know. And although part of me wanted to, I was able to keep myself distracted enough until 12. I stood outside as I always did, duffel in hand. 11:59 p.m. I saw the usual blip on the road. A slight smile crawled on my face as I thought about what I'd say to him being a couple minutes late. He pulled up at 12:02 a.m., his usual smile plastered on his face. "You'd think a job like this you'd be punctual, eh? I almost went back inside. How dare you make me wait?" He laughed. "I'm happy to do this job alone and take it all myself. Go back inside if you want, brother." I smirked as I threw the duffel in the back, catching a slight glimpse of the sack. He looked to be an average build, around 5'8", 5'10". I got into the truck. Travis glanced at me, keeping his head towards the road. "How much this one weigh?" I asked as I shut the door, and Travis started driving. 230 pounds? Really? He seems smaller. Must have a bit more muscle than it looked. I'd tell you, but I don't think it's a good idea to look inside that sack when we get the bodies. A good point. Music today? Huh? Oh, nah, I think I'm good. Oh wow, our music man is refusing the music? I just want you to personally sing me Kickstart My Heart over my dead body. In our business, that can be arranged, brother. We laughed and went on with our drive. We found another clearing off the road of the Green River Lake and parked similar to last time. It was a quiet night, no wind, clear sky. The moon had finished waxing and turned full, illuminating the clearing in a dim white light. Once more I began the dig. "Hey Travis," I said over the sound of the shovel. "You think it was a good idea to take this job?" There was a brief rustling of bottles as Travis sat up in the bed of the truck. "Sure, man. Why not? I mean, the guy must be rich as a pig. $5K for a single body? I wonder what this guy did." "Not sure. Probably don't want to know either. Ain't our job. Come on, it's been 10. Take over the digging. I'm taking over the bottle." Travis smirked as he reached back and grabbed the bottle before hopping off the tail. "A shovel for a bottle," I said. I hopped on the bed as Travis got to shoveling more dirt away. I breathed in the cool night air, looking between my friend shoveling and the clear starry sky above. $5 grand, huh? I thought as a Blanton stung my throat. It was a lot of money, and although our business did well enough after all the years of underground networking, jobs that paid like this weren't common, and when they came up they were usually bulk jobs. The last $5 grand job was 10 bodies, enough that we both had to dig if we wanted to be done before sunup. That was 3 years ago now. Definitely my hardest job. Was deathly afraid of getting caught that day. My neck turned to the big burlap sack in the back of the truck. "Just who are you?" I lifted the bottle once more. "Ryan, if you stare at the body so much you might come back alive blushing." My head snapped back to Travis. "Well, didn't you want to know what the guy did? Not interested in some zombie action? You almost soiled your pants from a deer and you think you can handle a zombie?" He laughed again. I took another as Travis went back to shoveling, but my curiosity didn't wane. Even with the alcohol beginning to flow through my system, if anything, it grew. I looked over the sack to the string holding it open at the top. My hand began to move towards the strings, slowly. As my finger touched the string and my thumb went to get a grip on it, sharp pain shot through my abdomen as the wind left my body and I hit the ground, the bottle having slipped from my hands and rolling into the grass. As I tried to get my bearings, he was on top of me. I rolled onto my back and barely moved my head to the left as he tried to bring the shovel down on me. "Travis, what the Ah!" I let out as he brought a foot down on my side. Why couldn't you just let it go, Ryan? Why do you need to know, huh? Travis, or what I thought to be Travis, hissed at me. He grabbed the shovel in both hands and tried to bring it down on me. I grabbed it inches away from my face and tried struggling. He had a weapon. I didn't know what to do. I tried glancing around briefly to understand my surroundings. To the left of us, a few feet away, was the hole that he'd finished digging. Using all the strength I could muster, I rolled us both to the right. In his moment of disorientation, I slid out and crawled myself over to the hole. I got to the edge of it before I felt a hand on my ankle, causing me to turn on my back once again. I tried kicking him, but he grabbed both of my legs. Those crazed eyes and that grin plastered on his face looked so off, surrounded by dirt. What are you? I'm Travis Brown, it said, its voice distorting, morphing into something unnatural. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't Travis, and at that moment I felt my heart shatter, joining the pain in my torso with the thought that the one in the bag. I felt my strength and will leave me in that moment. I lost my nerve as I thought about my best friend for all these years. As the fake Travis raised the shovel once more, I closed my eyes, not caring anymore. I would join my friend. With an inhale, I heard the sound of glass shattering. I opened my eyes just as that thing hit the ground next to me. Its head was busted open. Moonlight reflected off the liquid coming out of the thing's head, a dark blue, mere shades off black. I looked up and saw Travis, a streak of dry blood running down his face, accompanied by other cuts and bruises. His breathing was heavy, but that familiar smile was on his face. "You're Travis Brown, yeah?" Travis said, dropping the now broken bottle and retrieving the shovel before plunging it into the creature's back. It let out a deafening hiss next to me. With anger and fear coursing through my body, I grabbed the broken neck of the ball and shoved it into the thing's throat. A sickening, squishing noise permeated my ears before it finally lost its ability to shriek. Travis pulled the shovel out of the thing's back and kicked it into the hole. It fell with an unceremonious thunk. Travis looked at me, smile still there. He offered me his hand. "Look at the quality of this hole. How'd you think that thing was me?" I chuckled before stopping and grabbing my right side. That thing had definitely broken something when it thwacked me with the shovel. I grabbed Travis's hand as he did his best to gently lift me, but neither of us were in full shape. I probably should have known when he said to sing him kickstart my heart. Travis looked at me, false disgust arising on his face. "Ryan, are we even friends? You'd know I'd rather put myself in one of those holes than listen to that garbage." "Yeah, well, lesson learned," I wheezed. Afterwards, Travis slowly filled up the hole before we hobbled ourselves to the truck and set off for some medical attention. The story was that we were two friends that got a bit tipsy and decided to roughhouse a bit too rough. Really rough. I had 2 broken ribs on my right from the shovel and 1 from the foot brought down on me. Travis had a concussion and a cut that was hours off being infected, though we should both be back to business in a month's time as long as I took it easy on the digging. "What do you think that thing was?" Travis asked. "Brother, I think this is a reminder that we shouldn't get too curious about things. Some things are better left buried." "Maybe you're right." He laughed. "But it's going to be one heck of a story to remember, won't it?" "Yeah, I don't think I'll be forgetting this one." I huffed a small laugh, realizing I still wasn't in any shape to laugh. Luckily, Travis didn't ask many questions after that. I knew what that thing was, but I doubt that it knew what I was. And I'm glad that Travis didn't get too curious with the bags in our last $5,000 job. Some things are better left buried. And that was my original story. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. But as a surprise, we do have a second story in this video. It is going to be Sam Fuller by Sam Gallenberger, who wrote The Man Who Brought Happiness and also plays stupid games, wins stupid prizes. He wanted me to narrate this, so I thought I'd do it for you. I thought I'd throw it into my original story as well. So with that, on to the next story. Before I get to me, I need to start here. There's a story people began telling in our town of Casper. They call it the tale of Sam Fuller. A while back, Sam and his little brother Toby were playing by the lake. Sam was using a rock to write things in the sand, and Toby was playing with his new shark toy. It didn't take long before another group of kids came around. They started making fun of Sam. Apparently, he would talk to himself in the mirror at night, and that story got out. The bullying persisted, and the boys demanded that Sam and Toby swim to the middle of the lake. Sam protested, saying Toby was too little and couldn't swim. That didn't stop these boys. One of them threw Toby in while the others held Sam back. The main bully started throwing rocks at Toby to get him to swim deeper. It was obvious he was struggling, but his fear of the rocks instinctively forced him to go deeper into the lake. Sam fought to escape, but he was to no avail. Toby didn't get far before he started going under. The bullies were too busy dealing with Sam to notice. A rush of adrenaline hit Sam. He gouged one bully's eye, grabbed a stick, and pierced another boy's leg with it. Sam dove into the water and swam as fast as he could to rescue his brother. By the time Toby had gone under, there was no sign of him in the dark, murky water. Sam frantically looked for Toby. He bawled and screamed in between dives. Eventually, he had expended too much energy, and he began to go under himself. Coming to the realization that his brother was dead, Sam stopped attempting to swim. As his body gradually approached the lake's dark floor, he felt nothing but pure hatred. As he descended deeper, water entered his body and his lungs began to collapse. It's speculated that his last thoughts were that he would give anything to get his revenge. Shortly after is when the disappearances started. The city was already in mourning due to the loss of the two boys' lives. That story had been manipulated by the bullies and was said to have been a terrible accident. No questions asked. Didn't take long before children started saying they saw a creature at night. The creature allegedly had pale and permanently wet skin. Its face was said to lack facial features except for an abnormally large mouth, one that was constantly muttering. One of the bullies was quickly found dead, impaled by dozens of sticks. Another was found dead in the lake. He'd been tied to a rock and drowned. His eyes had been gouged out. The final bully and his family moved out of Casper shortly after. Those in the know say the creature is Sam Fuller reincarnated, that he'd made some deal with the devil to come back at the cost of his soul. That had been the price he was willing to pay to get his revenge. Rumors spread that there were 3 signs he was coming for you. First, you'd be left a toy in a weird place, giving it a deeper meaning. Next, he'd carve you a message with a rock. Finally, he'd give you a glimpse of him in the mirror 24 hours before you'd die. The mental toll this took on you seemed to be its primary weapon. Those in town didn't seem too bothered by him going after the bullies. They justified it. Except it didn't stop there. Lowlife started to go missing. Rebellious teens were next, and then it was children. Eventually, everyone who did things the creature didn't like became a target. It became an unwritten rule in Casper that if you wanted to be left alone, there were certain things you needed to avoid. Going to the lake after dark, or ever messing around near it, was strictly prohibited. Throwing rocks was another. Lastly, you couldn't speak ill of Sam or Toby Fuller. Once these ground rules were understood, things started calming down. The last alleged victim of Sam Fuller was a little girl named Verona White. Anyways, I hate to force all that on you, but it's important to understand how and why things work the way they do in this town. I'd been overseas for years, only recently returned, and I missed that entire chapter in the history of Casper. When I returned, I decided to make up for lost time. I unpacked at the old family cabin and did some maintenance in the shed, including a little painting. The shed was not in any condition to be used at that point, and the work to make the necessary changes was extensive. I noticed a bottle of vodka in the liquor drawer and emptied it out. I decided to fill it up with something more appropriate. All in all, it took about a week. After I fulfilled my obligations, I wanted to reach out to an old friend. It had been forever since Mark and I had gone fishing, and it was about time we changed that. Today, Mark was late. I'd gotten to the lake just before dawn, and the weight was beginning to wear on me. We'd always started fishing at the same time, and yet today, he was at least 45 minutes late. There wasn't much to do, so I began skipping rocks. The light from the moon was replaced by that of the sun, and after a while, I simply sat down to wait for him. He arrived soon after. "You're late," I said. Don't want to get here too early these days, he replied. Why, the kids around here a problem nowadays? I asked. Something like that, he said. With that, we pushed his canoe into the water. I was filled with a rush of familiarity. The cool breeze washed across my face, reminding me of my many trips out here. I'd never forget the scent of this lake as long as I lived. I heard you've gotten yourself a few medals, he said. I would have preferred if I hadn't, I replied. He chuckled. Makes sense. The hours flew by. We did some catching up, but mostly just enjoyed nature in its purest form. I don't know exactly how long we were out there. I suggested we head back, and Mark agreed, and tried to adjust my position on the boat, but lost my balance. Stepping over some rods, I fell into Mark, knocking him into the water. I had started laughing, but Mark immediately started to scream. It was an accident. I swear it was an accident. It was hard to tell. It looked like flailing from where I was standing, but it appeared Mark was trying to gesture something. His face was pale, and his eyes were darting back and forth at his surroundings. Yeah, I know, Mark. That was my fault, I said, reaching my hand out towards his. I'm not talking to you, Mark gasped, grabbing my hand and struggling back into the canoe. Well, then who the hell are you talking to? I asked. That's when he told me all about Sam Fuller. Really? That's a pretty unbelievable story, Mark, I said. I have a family, Grayson. I'm not risking anything, he replied. Fair enough. We made our way back to land and said our goodbyes. I gazed upon the lake once more to admire its beauty, then I started to chuckle. Sam Fuller, a lake creature. Alright. I made my way back to my truck. I was going to be hiking later and figured now was as good a time as any to change into my boots. I grabbed them out of my backpack and began to put them on. As I did so, my right foot met some resistance. There was something inside. I pulled it out. A shark toy. What the hell? I pondered what this could be. Oh, I see. I was being messed with. A shark in my boot. A predator was afoot. Talk about on the nose. I laughed it off and went on my way. I placed the toy in the passenger seat of my truck. I called up my old flame Molly to join my hike. It had been forever since we'd seen each other, and she had always loved hiking. We spent the day laughing away at all the good times we'd had. It was really good seeing her again. I dropped her off at home and kissed her goodbye. It had been a great day. That night, I had trouble sleeping. There were these loud scraping sounds outside. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out where they were coming from. The old cabin didn't have any neighbors in close proximity. When I awoke the next morning, I got my answer. Something had been carved into the pavement. It was the word, next. Well, that's just perfect. If Sam Fuller was real, he worked quickly. If he pops up in my mirror, I know exactly what I'm going to do. Hand him a bill for this shit. The rest of the day went by without incident. I bought some ammo and put it next to the gun rack in the shed, just in case. Before I knew it, the sun had come and gone. I was brushing my teeth when I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. My eyes darted in that direction, and I saw a glimpse of something horrifying. In an instant, it was out of sight, but the details had been seared into my brain. The pale gray skin, dripping with water. The absence of facial features except for the mouth. That disgusting mouth, extending the entire width of the face, each part of it moving autonomously, as if it were a combination of different mouths, each trying to tell its own story, bending unnaturally to do so. I gently left the bathroom and surveyed my surroundings. There wasn't anyone there. I looked down to my left and noticed that some of the carpet had darkened. It was wet. He was real. The rest of the story must be true then as well. He'd be coming for my life in 24 hours. For the first time, fear had begun to creep in. It was really hitting me now. I was going to be hunted by an entity of unknown strength and ability. It's quite possible that this was my last night on this planet. I had to ask myself an important question. If this was it for me, how did I want to spend my last day? I tossed and turned all night, contemplating the answer to this question. I woke the next morning around 6 a.m. I had roughly 16 hours to live. Despite all the tossing and turning, I realized that at my core, I am truly a simple man. I didn't have many desires. After I woke, I went fishing out on the lake again in an attempt to ease my nerves. By the time I got off the lake, I had 10 hours to go. I drove around town, remembering the days of my youth and all the good times I'd had in Casper. 8 hours to go. I went to the firing range to see how rusty I was. 6 hours to go. I hit up Molly again. If this was my last day, I wanted to spend my last few free hours with her. I took her to dinner, and then we rekindled some of the old magic for a bit. Before I knew it, it was time to get back. There was 1 hour left. The sun had set. Only one last thing to do. I made it back to the property with about 20 minutes left. I grabbed the shark toy and one other thing from the seat and headed inside the cabin. From there, I made my way over to the kitchen. I browsed through the liquor cabinet and found the recently filled vodka bottle. In one hand was the bottle, the other held the toy that had forewarned me of my impending doom. I wanted things to be on my terms, and I headed over to the shed. Inside, I looked to my gun rack. It was empty. The ammo was missing too. Yep, only one last thing to do. I took a seat on a bench at the far end of the room, and I drank away. I didn't know exactly how long it took from that point on before I heard the rustling outside. Should have been minutes, but felt like hours. My mind was racing, and it all blurred together. I knew exactly what was coming. Then, that's when the door creaked open. Sam Fuller, I presume. I said, turning around in my seat. There he was, in all of his disgusting glory, every inch of his gray figure dripping. Now that I had a good view of him, I noticed his limbs appeared elongated, and that his joints allowed a greater range of motion than any human had. His mouth widened, forming what I could only assume was a smile as he took a few steps closer to me. My gaze moved from his head to his feet. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Grayson White. The mouth didn't flinch, but there was a little movement where the eyes should have been. Almost like little circles were hiding underneath the layer of gray this thing called a face. You took my guns. Now I'm just a helpless drunk. I stammered. I continued. If that's what you thought, you'd be wrong. I waved the bottle in my left hand. This is actually water. I've been waiting for you, you piece of shit. I instantly threw the toy I was holding in my right hand to the left of the creature, drilling the wall, hitting the button painted white. The floor beneath Sam folded downward, and he fell. I slowly made my way over to the rectangular hole in the floor and peered down. There was Sam, his body impaled en masse by sharpened silver spikes. He wailed a grotesque howl as puss exited his many piercing wounds. I don't know your state of consciousness or awareness, so I don't know if you understand me or not. But like you, I tragically lost a sibling. I pulled the other item I'd taken from the car out of my pocket. A remote. It had 3 buttons lined up vertically in the middle. I hit the top button. More spikes shot out horizontally, piercing him further and dismembering his form. By the wails, I could tell that despite being ripped and torn apart, he was still alive. Good. Also, like you, I would have done anything to get revenge. I hit the middle button on the remote, and sprinklers rained down from above over the hole. The stench of gasoline filled the air. It was so strong I could taste it. My foe peered up at me, and even without eyes I could tell he was staring bullets through me. The funny thing about revenge is that it's short-sighted. If you justify revenge against others, you will give others reason to justify revenge against you. It's a never-ending cycle. I didn't start it, you didn't start it, and neither did the boys who killed your brother, but we all perpetuated it. I sighed, my arm extended, and I slowly waggled the remote back and forth. With my other hand, I methodically moved my pointer finger closer and closer to the button on the bottom, pausing for a brief moment. The truth is, Sam Fuller, we're the same. I, like you, am a part of this cycle. I've been a part of it for a long time. I know eventually the cycle will come back for me, but today, it's come for you. For Verona White, may you rot in hell. I said, pressing the 3rd button. The hole was immediately set ablaze. The heat was tremendous and parts of my skin singed. I didn't budge. It was worth it to keep my eyes on this pitiful creature burned straight to hell. I waited until the flames waned, hissing on the ruins to douse the final embers. I looked down at my handiwork and saw the burnt remains of my prey. I'd avenged my sister. And man, I'd expected there to be more remains. It was almost like all that was left was a burnt outer husk. That is Sam Fuller, our second story. I actually read it first, so I'm going to be reading the other story after this one. But I did like that one. There's a shorter one, and that's why I went ahead and stuck it together with the other one, because you guys all want longer stuff, so I thought I'd just stitch these two together, and thought it was finally time to read my third original story on the channel. You can find the other two somewhere in the playlist. But I did like this story. I wonder if Sam didn't die, if that burnt outer husk at the end was like a skin sort of shedding or something, and if this guy's gonna get God again. So, alrighty. So I'm coming back to talk to you after I've edited the story, which I did want to ask you guys, do you want me to come back and talk to you after I've edited so that I can talk about my editing, or do you just want to hear me talk about the story? The latter is easier for me because I don't have to come back and sit under my blanket and record an extra outro, but if this is what you prefer, that's fine. Before I ended it off, I wanted to talk about my own story, the dead body story. That story was actually inspired by G-Trip 14 and Grand Theft Motto. I've had She Will Come to Me Blanketed in the Stars and the 3-piece of advice story from G-Trip on this channel. And Grand Theft Motto, I haven't gotten the honor to have one of his stories on the channel yet, but they're both good friends of mine. They're both good friends of each other, and the story was actually inspired by a comment that Motto left that hopefully not hopefully, I'll go do it right now actually. I'll go put on the screen a screenshot of it. So I hope you liked both of these stories, and as I'm recording this, Play Stupid Games, Win Stupid Prizes is doing pretty well right now, so thank you all for going and listening to that story. It was written by Sam Gallenberger, who just wrote the story that you just heard. Thank you all so much for listening. I enjoyed both of these stories, and yeah, let me know what you think, and let me know how you would like the outro to be done. The sound effects are all edited in, and I thought I had something to say about one of them or some of them, but I forgot, so my bad. It's late right now, really late. It's like 4 in the morning, and I'm finishing this for you. So anyhow, much love, thank you for listening. Ego Volt Anima Vestra.